Have you ever wondered, in the middle of this chaotic world, if there is a set of rules that you can follow that will help you to do better in your life, achieve more things, or have better relationships? 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos by Jordan Peterson, is a self-help book that blends philosophy, psychology, and practical advice. Drawing from a wide range of sources, including ancient wisdom, religious texts, and Peterson's own clinical experiences as a psychologist, the book provides guidelines to navigate the complexities of modern life. Each rule is designed to offer a pathway towards order in a world often perceived as chaotic. The main idea of the book revolves around the need to impose structure and responsibility on our lives. Peterson argues that through discipline, self-improvement, and facing challenges head-on, we can create a sense of order that combats chaos. This detailed summary explains the most important ideas that the book is trying to convey. It's rich and detailed. You can just listen to it, or you can activate the captions to read along. Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. In the first chapter, Peterson draws a fascinating parallel between the behavior of lobsters and humans to convey a powerful message about posture, dominance, and the influence of status on well-being. He starts by illustrating the dominance hierarchies that lobsters, as well as many other animals, live in. Lobsters engage in fierce territorial battles, and the outcomes of these battles determine their status in their social hierarchy. A lobster that wins a fight stands tall and exudes confidence, while a defeated lobster becomes submissive, curling into itself. Peterson uses the example of lobsters to explain that hierarchical structures are deeply ingrained in the animal kingdom, including humans. Just as a lobster's victory or defeat affects its posture, body chemistry, and future interactions, humans also exhibit similar behaviors based on their position in society. Those at the top of hierarchies tend to be confident, assertive, and healthier, while those at the bottom experience anxiety, stress, and poor health. This isn't just a psychological effect. Biological processes are at work. For example, serotonin, a neurotransmitter linked to mood regulation, plays a significant role. Winners of confrontations have higher serotonin levels, making them more resilient and assertive. In contrast, losers produce less serotonin, making them more prone to stress and defeat. The key takeaway from this first rule is that one's posture and physical stance are reflections of their psychological state, but they can also be a powerful tool to influence it. When someone stands tall, with their shoulders back, they do not only project confidence to others, but also signal to their brain that they are in control. This physical act can set off a positive feedback loop, where standing tall makes them feel more confident, which in turn leads to better interactions and outcomes. Peterson argues that by adopting the right physical posture, people can literally change how they feel and how they are perceived, leading to a cascade of positive effects in their life. Furthermore, Peterson emphasizes that life is inherently full of challenges, and the natural order is often chaotic. However, standing up straight with shoulders back is not merely about physical posture. It is a metaphor for taking on the burden of responsibility and facing life's difficulties head-on. Instead of shrinking in fear or succumbing to life's inevitable challenges, individuals should confront them with courage and dignity. By doing so, they build resilience and create a sense of purpose, which helps counter the chaos of life. In the grander context, this rule serves as a foundation for the other principles Peterson will outline in the book. It speaks to the importance of personal responsibility, self-discipline, and the idea that individuals have more control over their circumstances than they might realize. By choosing to adopt a strong posture, both literally and figuratively, people set themselves on a path toward growth, success, and a more meaningful existence. In summary, Rule 1 teaches that standing up straight with your shoulders back isn't just about body language. It is a life philosophy. It's about accepting responsibility, embracing struggle, and asserting yourself in the world to create a better, more resilient version of yourself. Rule 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. In the second chapter, Peterson explores the idea of self-care and why humans often fail to take care of themselves properly. The rule challenges individuals to approach their own well-being with the same care and attention they would provide to someone they love or feel responsible for, such as a child or pet. Peterson starts by highlighting a curious statistic. People are often more diligent about administering medication to their pets than they are about taking care of themselves. He illustrates this through various examples, including organ transplant patients who fail to take life-saving anti-rejection drugs. Paradoxically, the same individuals would meticulously ensure their pets took necessary medications. This leads Peterson to ask why people struggle to care for themselves with the same dedication they extend to others. He argues that part of the problem lies in the complexity of human self-awareness. Unlike animals, humans are painfully aware of their own flaws, limitations, and mortality. This heightened sense of self-consciousness often leads to feelings of unworthiness, making people believe they don't deserve care or attention. From this perspective, people may neglect themselves as a form of punishment, conscious or not, for their perceived inadequacies. Humans, with their complex emotions and awareness of sin and imperfection, often feel unworthy of compassion or self-care. The internal dialogue many people have with themselves is harsh and critical, contrasting starkly with the kindness they show toward others. Peterson delves deeper into the philosophical and biblical origins of these attitudes, drawing on the story of Adam and Eve. He explains that after eating the forbidden fruit, Adam and Eve became aware of their nakedness and vulnerability, symbolizing humanity's awakening to its own imperfections and mortality. This original sin, according to Peterson, instilled in humans a deep-seated sense of shame and unworthiness, which persists today. However, the rule suggests a way out of this self-sabotaging mindset. Just as God created humans in His image, Peterson encourages people to recognize their own inherent worth and potential. Humans, he argues, are not merely flawed creatures, but also possess a spark of the divine. This divine spark gives people the capacity to bring order out of chaos and to create meaning in their lives. Therefore, it is not only a moral duty but also an act of self-respect to take care of oneself properly. Peterson's message is clear. Just as you would nurture and protect a loved one, you must extend that same compassion and responsibility to yourself. This involves more than just meeting basic needs. It means striving for personal growth, self-discipline, and a life of meaning. By treating yourself like someone you are responsible for helping, you acknowledge both your weaknesses and your potential, committing to a path of self-improvement. In summary, Rule 2 challenges individuals to reevaluate their relationship with themselves. Rather than succumbing to self-neglect out of guilt or unworthiness, people should recognize their own value and treat themselves with the same care they would offer to others. This mindset, according to Peterson, is crucial for living a balanced, meaningful life. Rule 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. In the third chapter, Peterson emphasizes the importance of surrounding yourself with people who genuinely care for your well-being and encourage your growth. He explores how relationships influence the trajectory of your life, and why choosing the right friends is a crucial step towards self-improvement and success. Peterson begins by describing how people are often drawn to unhealthy relationships, where friends can have a destructive influence. This can happen for various reasons, including low self-esteem, guilt, or a desire to rescue someone. Many individuals, particularly those with a negative self-image, tend to gravitate toward people who reinforce their self-destructive habits. Peterson explains that when people don't value themselves, they allow others to mistreat them or keep them stagnant in life. This is where the first key lesson comes in. Choose friends who encourage you to grow. Peterson argues that friendships should be reciprocal. If you wouldn't recommend a friend to your loved ones, why would you keep them in your life? Friends should be people who want to see you improve and succeed, not those who drag you down or make excuses for your failures. Real friends support you when you aim upward, offering encouragement when you make good choices and holding you accountable when you stray from your goals. Peterson shares the insight that who you surround yourself with shapes your future. Just as a bad influence can lead someone into bad habits, Good friends push you to be better. These are the people who don't let you indulge in self-pity or destructive behaviors. Instead, they inspire you to reach your potential, not through criticism, but by holding you to higher standards. On the other hand, people who aren't striving to better themselves will often resent those who are. They may offer a cigarette to a former smoker or tempt someone recovering from addiction, not because they care, but because your success reminds them of their own failures. A practical takeaway from this rule is to seek out those who elevate you. Peterson urges readers to be mindful of the company they keep, as the behavior and mindset of friends will either pull you up or drag you down. It's important to assess whether a friendship is built on mutual support or if it's founded on unhealthy dynamics, where one person is constantly propping up the other. This doesn't mean abandoning people in need, but rather recognizing when a relationship is based on your need to be a savior rather than on true mutual support. Peterson also reflects on the human tendency to try to save others, a behavior that can be driven by vanity. Helping others can sometimes be more about feeling morally superior than genuinely wanting to help. He explains that true help comes when someone is ready to be helped. You can't force change on someone who doesn't want it. Sometimes, people cling to their suffering because it gives them an excuse to avoid responsibility. In such cases, no amount of help will make a difference, and in trying to save them, you risk being pulled down with them. The chapter concludes with a powerful message. Making friends with people who want the best for you isn't selfish, it's necessary for growth. Surrounding yourself with people who support your development allows you to move forward in life. Good friends don't just tolerate your successes, they celebrate them and push you to achieve more. By choosing people who want the best for you, you create a positive feedback loop where you're encouraged to become a better version of yourself. In summary, Rule 3 teaches that friendship is a reciprocal relationship based on mutual growth and support. The people you surround yourself with can either help you rise or hold you back. By choosing friends who genuinely want the best for you, you position yourself for success and personal development. It's a call to be intentional about your relationships, ensuring they contribute to your progress, not your stagnation. Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. In the 4th chapter, Peterson focuses on the dangers of comparing oneself to others and offers a healthier approach to self-improvement. He emphasizes that self-comparison should be centered on personal growth rather than being a competition with others. By doing so, individuals can find fulfillment and progress without falling into the traps of envy, resentment, or despair. Peterson begins by explaining how modern life has drastically increased the scope of comparison. In smaller, more localized communities, people could excel in specific domains and feel proud of their achievements. But in today's world, global connectivity and media make it easy for individuals to constantly compare themselves to the best in every field. Whether it's a famous athlete, a successful entrepreneur, or a social media star, the comparison can feel overwhelming and disheartening. The gap between where you are and where others seem to be becomes a source of constant dissatisfaction. This leads to the first key idea, the importance of framing comparisons wisely. When individuals compare themselves to someone else, they often choose an area where they feel inadequate, overlooking other areas where they may excel. The internal critic, which Peterson describes, relentlessly highlights failures and inadequacies, creating a sense of worthlessness. This voice may be loud, but it's also misguided. The truth is, we are all playing different games, with different strengths, weaknesses, and circumstances. Success is not universal or absolute. It is highly individual and context-specific. Peterson suggests that instead of trying to compete with the world, you should focus on incremental self-improvement. The best way to assess your growth is by looking at who you were yesterday. By comparing yourself to your past self, you create a personalized measure of progress, which is far more meaningful than an external comparison. Everyone has their own unique mix of talents and challenges, and personal growth is about maximizing your potential, not about being the best at everything. Life is a journey of continuous improvement, and by aiming to be slightly better each day, you make meaningful progress. Another major takeaway is the notion that small victories compound over time. Personal growth doesn't come from sudden, massive transformations. Rather, it comes from making small, consistent improvements in your daily life. Even a small change, like organizing one aspect of your life or setting a minor goal, can lead to significant progress when sustained over time. Peterson uses the concept of compound interest to explain how incremental changes can accumulate to make a big difference. By focusing on what you can realistically achieve today, you set yourself up for long-term success. Peterson also touches on the idea that every individual has their own values, desires, and circumstances. What may seem like a victory for one person could be irrelevant or undesirable for another. This means that each person must figure out their own goals and aspirations, which are deeply personal. Comparing yourself to others often leads to valuing things that aren't truly important to you, which can result in feeling lost or unfulfilled. The key is to determine what matters most in your life, and to measure success based on that. The chapter also warns against the dangers of envy and resentment, which often arise when comparing oneself to others. These emotions are destructive and lead to bitterness, as they make people focus on what they lack rather than what they have. By comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, you sidestep these negative feelings and keep the focus on positive, self-directed growth. Peterson concludes by emphasizing that self-awareness and self-compassion are crucial for growth. Rather than being a harsh critic, you should approach yourself with kindness, recognizing that progress takes time and that setbacks are part of the journey. By negotiating with yourself in good faith, you can make realistic plans for improvement that don't lead to burnout or self-sabotage. In summary, Rule 4 teaches that the only meaningful comparison is with yourself. By focusing on your own progress and aiming to be better than you were yesterday, you create a path toward personal growth that is both achievable and fulfilling. This mindset shifts the focus away from unhealthy competition with others and helps cultivate self-compassion, patience, and long-term success. Rule 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. In Rule 5, Peterson delves into the importance of discipline, boundaries, and parenting with intention. He argues that parenting is one of the most significant and challenging responsibilities, and neglecting discipline can lead to negative long-term consequences for both the child and society. This rule encourages parents to correct their children's behavior early to prevent larger problems later in life. Peterson starts by pointing out how many parents fail to discipline their children effectively because they fear losing their children's love or feel uncomfortable enforcing rules. However, he explains that discipline is not only about immediate obedience, but about teaching children the social skills they need to navigate the broader world. Without boundaries, children grow up believing that there are no limits to their behavior, leading to frustration, rejection, and conflict in their relationships with others. The key idea here is that parents are responsible for socializing their children. Children need to learn what is acceptable and what is not, and it is the parents' role to teach them. This isn't always easy, as it involves moments of conflict, anger, and even resentment. But by letting children act in ways that are disruptive, disrespectful, or selfish, parents set them up for failure in social environments. The world will not be as forgiving as a parent, and if children do not learn how to behave early on, they will face harsher consequences from society. Another important lesson in this chapter is the necessity of setting rules and using discipline effectively. Peterson emphasizes that there shouldn't be too many rules, but the ones that exist should be enforced consistently. This consistency creates a sense of order and security for children. They need to know where the boundaries are, and clear rules help them understand the consequences of their actions. When parents fail to set and enforce rules, children can become anxious, as they do not know how far they can go. Structure and discipline create a safe environment for children to grow and thrive. Peterson also argues that discipline should be administered with minimum necessary force. The idea is to correct misbehavior effectively but without being overly harsh or punitive. This means finding the least intrusive method of enforcing rules while ensuring the child understands the boundaries. For example, a simple look of disapproval or a calm verbal reprimand might suffice in some situations, while others may require a more direct approach. The goal is to teach children self-regulation and responsibility without resorting to unnecessary punishment. Furthermore, Peterson suggests that failing to discipline children can lead to resentment on both sides. Parents who are afraid of correcting their children may end up feeling angry and frustrated with them. Over time, these negative feelings can erode the parent-child relationship, leading to even greater problems. Children who are not disciplined appropriately may also develop feelings of resentment toward their parents, as they struggle to understand why they are treated differently by the outside world. Peterson also touches on the societal implications of poorly disciplined children. If parents do not take on the responsibility of teaching their children how to behave, the broader world will step in to discipline them in much harsher ways. This could manifest in problems at school, difficulties in friendships, or even legal issues later in life. Parents are the first line of defense in helping children become responsible, socially adept adults, and neglecting this duty only leads to more significant challenges down the road. In summary, Rule 5 stresses the critical role of discipline and boundaries in raising well-adjusted children. It encourages parents to take their role as disciplinarians seriously, not out of anger or a desire for control, but out of love and responsibility. By setting clear rules and enforcing them with care, parents help their children learn how to function effectively in the world. The ultimate goal is to raise children who are socially competent, self-regulated, and capable of thriving in a complex, demanding society. Rule 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. In Rule 6, Peterson explores the idea of personal responsibility and self-improvement. The essence of this rule is that before anyone can rightfully judge or attempt to change the world, they must first put their own lives in order. Peterson argues that when we confront the chaos and suffering in the world, the temptation is often to lash out or blame external forces, but the true path to meaningful change begins with ourselves. Peterson starts by acknowledging that life is inherently full of suffering and injustice. Whether it's personal tragedies, social inequalities, or global catastrophes, the world is riddled with pain. Many people respond to this suffering by becoming bitter, angry, or nihilistic. They may turn to blaming the universe, fate, or even God for their suffering. This mindset can lead to a dangerous path of resentment and destruction, as people project their frustration onto others or the world itself. Peterson suggests that this is the mindset that has driven some of history's most notorious criminals and mass murderers, who sought vengeance against the world for the suffering they endured. But Peterson offers an alternative. Instead of becoming bitter or seeking revenge against a world that seems unfair, individuals should focus on what they can control, their own lives. The central idea of this rule is that personal responsibility must come first. Before criticizing the state of the world, Peterson urges individuals to examine their own lives and make sure they are in order. This means addressing personal shortcomings, fixing bad habits, and taking responsibility for one's own failures. A key lesson here is that small, personal changes can lead to broader societal improvements. Rather than attempting to fix all of the world's problems, start with yourself. Peterson suggests taking a hard look at your own behavior. Are there things you're doing that you know are wrong? Are you contributing to your own suffering or the suffering of others through your actions or inactions? By correcting your own faults, even if they seem minor, you begin to contribute positively to the world around you. One practical takeaway from this rule is the importance of focusing on what is within your control. When faced with overwhelming chaos in the world, it's easy to feel powerless. But there is always something within your immediate environment that you can improve. It could be your relationships, your work ethic, or even something as simple as cleaning your room. These small acts of order and responsibility may seem insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but they have a cumulative effect. As you bring more order to your own life, you become stronger and more capable of dealing with the challenges of the world. Another key point is that avoiding self-deception is critical to personal growth. Peterson warns against the tendency to ignore or justify our own bad behavior. People often make excuses for their shortcomings or try to shift the blame onto others, but in doing so, they prevent themselves from making meaningful progress. The path to true self-improvement requires honesty, humility, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about oneself. Peterson also emphasizes that taking responsibility for your own life is empowering. When you stop blaming external forces for your problems and start focusing on what you can change, you take back control. This shift in mindset allows you to face challenges with more confidence and resilience. It also helps prevent the kind of bitterness and resentment that can lead people down a destructive path. In the larger context, this rule is a call for self-discipline and personal accountability. Peterson argues that many of the problems we face in society today are rooted in individuals who fail to take responsibility for their own lives. By focusing on fixing oneself first, each person can contribute to a more orderly and just world. It's not about being perfect, but about making consistent efforts to improve. In conclusion, Rule 6 teaches that before you try to change the world, you must first get your own life in order. By taking responsibility for your own actions, fixing your personal flaws, and bringing order to your immediate environment, you become a force for positive change. This mindset not only improves your own life, but also contributes to making the world a better place. Ultimately, the lesson is that meaningful change starts from within. Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. In Rule 7, Peterson explores the idea that the path to a fulfilling life requires choosing meaning over short-term pleasure. He begins by addressing the inherent suffering in life, which, he argues, is an unavoidable fact. Life is difficult, filled with challenges and hardships, and people often seek immediate gratification to avoid or numb this suffering. However, Peterson suggests that this approach, doing what is expedient or convenient in the moment, only leads to a deeper sense of emptiness and frustration. Peterson contrasts expediency with meaning, explaining that expediency involves doing what is easy and offers immediate rewards, but often at the expense of long-term well-being. It is driven by selfishness, short-term thinking, and avoidance of responsibility. Meaning, on the other hand, is derived from taking on responsibility, facing life's difficulties with courage, and striving for higher ideals. He argues that the pursuit of meaning requires sacrifice, foregoing immediate pleasures for long-term rewards, and that this is a far more fulfilling path. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of sacrifice. Peterson reflects on ancient religious practices, particularly the idea of offering sacrifices to God. These sacrifices, he explains, were symbolic of giving up something valuable in the present for a better future. This idea of delaying gratification is central to personal growth and success. Sacrificing momentary pleasures for the sake of future gains is not just a practical strategy, but also a profound moral decision. By making sacrifices, people can transcend their selfish desires and align themselves with a greater good, whether it is for their family, community, or future self. Peterson also delves into the biblical story of Cain and Abel to illustrate the consequences of failing to pursue meaning. Abel's sacrifices were accepted by God, while Cain's were not, leading to Cain's bitterness and eventual downfall. Cain, consumed by envy and resentment, murdered his brother instead of reflecting on how he could improve. Peterson uses this story to highlight the dangers of comparing oneself to others and the destructive consequences of choosing bitterness over responsibility. The lesson here is that when people fail to pursue meaning and instead choose expediency, they are likely to become angry and resentful, blaming others or the world for their problems. Another practical takeaway from this chapter is the importance of responsibility. Peterson argues that taking responsibility for oneself and for others is what gives life meaning. It is through responsibility that individuals can find purpose and fulfillment. Avoiding responsibility, on the other hand, leads to a shallow, unfulfilling existence. Peterson emphasizes that meaning comes from taking on as much responsibility as possible, whether it's in work, family, or personal development. By striving to improve oneself and contribute positively to the world, individuals can create a sense of meaning that sustains them through life's inevitable hardships. Peterson also touches on the idea that meaning requires courage. Pursuing what is meaningful often involves confronting difficult truths, taking risks, and enduring hardship. It requires people to face their own flaws, failures, and limitations, and to strive towards something higher despite these challenges. This is not an easy path, but it is the only path that leads to a truly fulfilling life. Choosing meaning over expediency means embracing responsibility, sacrifice, and the pursuit of higher ideals, even when it is difficult. In conclusion, Rule 7 teaches that true fulfillment comes from pursuing meaning rather than expediency. While expedient choices may offer immediate pleasure or relief, they do not provide lasting satisfaction. Meaning is found in taking on responsibility, making sacrifices, and striving for long-term goals. By choosing meaning over expediency, individuals can overcome life's suffering, find purpose, and live a more rewarding and satisfying life. Rule 8: tell the truth, or at least don't lie. In Rule 8, Peterson argues for the importance of truthfulness in life and the destructive consequences of lying. The core message is simple. Telling the truth strengthens your character and aligns you with reality, while lies corrupt your soul, relationships, and society at large. The rule serves as a powerful reminder of the ethical responsibility individuals have to themselves and others to live authentically and with integrity. Peterson begins by explaining how deception, both small and large, erodes trust and distorts reality. He illustrates how people often lie for convenience or to avoid conflict, thinking it will make life easier. However, lies tend to compound, leading to greater confusion and dysfunction. This dishonesty creates a warped view of the world, where things are seen as they are wished to be, rather than as they truly are. Lies foster chaos, and the longer they persist, the more they distort reality. One of the key ideas is that living in accordance with the truth brings strength and clarity. Telling the truth is not always easy or convenient, but it keeps you grounded in reality and helps you make better decisions. Peterson emphasizes that truth-telling builds a solid foundation for both individual lives and society. When you tell the truth, you face the world as it is, and this allows you to deal with its challenges more effectively. In contrast, when you lie, you weaken yourself, because lies require constant maintenance. You end up living in fear of being exposed or entangled in the consequences of your falsehoods. Peterson draws from his clinical psychology background to show how lies damage mental health. He explains that people who lie often end up feeling fragmented and disconnected. They have to juggle different versions of themselves to maintain their deceptions, which leads to stress, anxiety, and feelings of unreality. By contrast, telling the truth, or at least refusing to lie, brings inner peace and coherence. When you live truthfully, you are more in tune with yourself and with reality, which helps you navigate life with greater confidence and purpose. A significant takeaway from this rule is that truth builds trust, which is essential for relationships. In both personal and professional interactions, trust is the foundation of cooperation. When people know they can rely on your words, it strengthens bonds and enables mutual understanding. Lies, on the other hand, destroy trust and make relationships fragile. Once trust is broken, it's difficult to restore, and people become suspicious of one another. Peterson also touches on the idea of telling the truth as an act of courage. It often takes bravery to tell the truth, especially when the truth is uncomfortable, or when lying might seem like an easier way out. But choosing to face reality rather than avoiding it by lying is a form of personal integrity. Truth-telling is a form of sacrifice. It might mean enduring conflict, embarrassment, or short-term pain, but it ultimately leads to long-term stability and integrity. Another key point in this chapter is the role of truth in social and political systems. Peterson explains how entire societies can be corrupted by lies. He references historical examples, such as the Soviet Union, where the widespread acceptance of lies led to immense suffering and totalitarianism. When lies become embedded in the fabric of a society, they create systems that are unsustainable and lead to collapse. By contrast, societies that value truth and transparency tend to be more stable, just, and prosperous. In summary, Rule 8 teaches that truth is the foundation of a well-lived life. It builds character, trust, and a clearer understanding of reality. Lies, no matter how small, weaken the individual and society, leading to chaos and destruction. By committing to truth, you align yourself with the fundamental order of the world and create a more stable and meaningful existence. The practical takeaway is that while telling the truth can be difficult, it is always the better choice in the long run, and if you cannot tell the truth, at least don't lie. Rule 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. And Rule 9. Peterson delves into the value of genuine listening and how it can foster both understanding and personal growth. The rule encourages readers to approach conversations with openness and humility, recognizing that others may have insights that can enhance their own knowledge and perspective. Peterson begins by describing the common tendency to treat conversations as battles, where the primary goal is to assert one's own viewpoint rather than to truly listen and learn from the other person. He explains that many people engage in discussions with a mindset of proving their superiority, seeing dialogue as a chance to assert dominance rather than as an opportunity for genuine exchange. This approach limits learning because it shuts down the possibility of discovering something new, or correcting one's own misconceptions. Instead, Peterson advocates for an attitude of humility in conversation, where the listener assumes that the other person might know something valuable that they do not. Peterson also distinguishes between advice and genuine conversation. In genuine conversation, the listener is not simply waiting for their turn to speak or offering unsolicited advice. Rather, they are deeply engaged in what the other person is saying, paying close attention, and trying to understand their perspective. This is particularly important in therapy, where Peterson has observed that many clients already know what their problems are and what they need to do to solve them. They just need someone to listen carefully and help them articulate their thoughts. Often, through the process of speaking and being listened to, people clarify their own issues and come up with their own solutions. This illustrates the power of listening not just to understand others, but also to help them understand themselves. A key lesson in this chapter is that listening is an active process that requires effort and self-discipline. It's not about passively absorbing information, but about actively engaging with the speaker's words, asking questions, and clarifying meaning. When you listen carefully, you help the speaker refine their thoughts and ideas. This process of active listening not only benefits the speaker, but also the listener, who may gain new insights or perspectives they hadn't considered before. Peterson emphasizes that real thinking requires listening. He explains that many people believe they are thinking when, in fact, they are simply rehearsing what they already believe. True thinking involves exploring different perspectives, challenging one's own assumptions, and being willing to change one's mind based on new information. This is why listening to others is so valuable. It exposes you to viewpoints you might not have considered and helps you refine your own understanding. One of the practical takeaways from this rule is the importance of reframing your conversations as opportunities for learning. Peterson suggests that, instead of approaching discussions with the goal of proving yourself right, you should approach them with the mindset that the other person might know something you don't. This doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they say, but it does mean being open to the possibility that they might offer a valuable perspective or insight. Another takeaway is the value of summarizing what the other person has said to ensure that you understand them correctly. Peterson draws on the work of Carl Rogers, a renowned psychotherapist, who emphasized the importance of accurately restating the other person's position before responding. This technique not only ensures that you have understood their point, but also shows the other person that you are genuinely listening. It builds trust and fosters a more productive conversation. Peterson also highlights the dangers of dominance hierarchies in conversation, where people try to outdo each other with better stories or more dramatic examples, rather than truly engaging with what the other person is saying. These conversations are about status, not understanding, and they tend to leave both parties feeling unsatisfied. In contrast, conversations where both parties are genuinely listening and trying to learn from each other are far more rewarding and meaningful. In conclusion, Rule 9 teaches that true listening is an act of humility and an opportunity for growth. By assuming that the person you are listening to might know something you don't, you open yourself up to learning and expanding your perspective. Genuine listening fosters deeper connections, helps clarify thinking, and allows both parties to gain a better understanding of themselves and the world. Rule 10. Be precise in your speech. In Rule 10, Peterson discusses the critical importance of using language clearly and accurately to shape reality. His argument is that speaking truthfully and precisely helps clarify thoughts, avoid chaos, and address problems before they spiral out of control. Peterson emphasizes that vague language not only obscures meaning, but also fosters confusion, miscommunication, and unresolved conflicts. Peterson opens by illustrating how people often choose vague speech as a way of avoiding uncomfortable truths. He explains that individuals may shy away from specificity because it forces them to confront difficult realities. For example, in relationships, people may avoid direct confrontation about issues like dissatisfaction or resentment. By failing to address these concerns head-on, the underlying problems fester, growing into larger conflicts over time. This avoidance allows chaos to accumulate in life, much like a dragon that grows in size while being ignored, until it becomes too large to control. A key idea in this chapter is that precise language brings clarity and resolution. When individuals articulate their problems clearly, they are forced to confront the exact nature of the issue. This clarity allows for solutions to emerge, whereas vague, undefined problems remain unsolved and often worsen. Peterson argues that precision in speech is akin to drawing a map for the future. It helps people navigate the complexities of life by identifying specific goals and obstacles. Without this clarity, individuals are lost, aimlessly wandering through a fog of uncertainty. Another important point Peterson makes is that language shapes perception. How we describe the world influences how we experience it. For example, if we describe a situation in vague, negative terms, we may feel overwhelmed or hopeless. However, if we define the problem clearly, we can begin to see possible solutions. This shift in perspective transforms the way we interact with the world. By being precise in our speech, we refine our understanding of reality, making it more manageable and less chaotic. Peterson also warns about the consequences of dishonesty and vague speech. He explains that people often deceive themselves and others by avoiding direct confrontation with the truth. This dishonesty may seem like a way to keep the peace in the short term, but it leads to long-term instability. He gives examples of how lies, omissions, and half-truths can build up over time, creating a distorted version of reality. Eventually, this distorted reality collapses under its own weight, causing significant personal and relational damage. Being precise in speech, on the other hand, requires a commitment to truth, which fosters trust and strengthens relationships. The chapter also highlights that precision requires courage. Speaking truthfully and clearly can be difficult, especially when it involves addressing uncomfortable or painful subjects. It can mean confronting failures, admitting mistakes, or revealing vulnerabilities. But Peterson argues that this is the only path toward meaningful change and growth. By being courageous enough to speak precisely, individuals open the door to personal development and deeper connections with others. A practical takeaway from this rule is that precise speech is a tool for problem solving. Whether in personal relationships, work, or everyday life, clearly defining issues allows people to take constructive action. For example, instead of saying everything is terrible, a person could specify the exact issue, such as, I am frustrated because we haven't been communicating well. This specificity not only makes the problem more manageable, but also opens up avenues for discussion and resolution. In summary, Rule 10 teaches that precise language is essential for navigating the complexities of life. By choosing to be clear and truthful in speech, individuals can clarify their thoughts, address problems directly, and avoid the chaos that comes from avoidance and vagueness. Precision requires courage, but it is the only way to achieve meaningful understanding, resolution, and growth. Speaking carefully and accurately helps individuals create order from the inherent chaos of life, leading to better relationships, greater personal clarity, and a more stable existence. Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. In Rule 11, Peterson explores the importance of allowing young people, especially boys, to take risks and face challenges as a critical part of their development into competent adults. He argues that modern society tends to overprotect children, which stifles their ability to build resilience and courage. Peterson begins by observing children and teenagers engaged in activities like skateboarding, where they perform daring tricks and expose themselves to danger. He notes that these activities are not just about having fun, but are essential for developing competence and confidence. When children test their limits and face the risks inherent in these activities, they learn how to confront the world and master themselves in the process. The core message is that facing danger is a fundamental part of growth. By pushing the boundaries of what they can do, children learn about their strengths and weaknesses and gain the confidence needed to tackle more significant challenges in life. Peterson argues that overprotection from risk weakens children, leaving them ill-equipped to deal with the complexities and dangers of the adult world. He criticizes the trend in modern society to eliminate all forms of danger from children's lives, whether by removing playground equipment or installing skate stoppers to prevent skateboarding in public spaces. He views these actions as manifestations of a broader cultural impulse to eliminate all risks, which ultimately prevents young people from developing the fortitude they need to succeed. A significant lesson from this chapter is the value of mastering fear and danger. Peterson emphasizes that life itself is inherently dangerous and chaotic. Shielding children from all risks not only fails to protect them, but also leaves them unprepared to face the inevitable difficulties of adulthood. By engaging in activities like skateboarding, children learn to master fear, adapt to changing conditions, and become more resilient. These experiences help them develop into capable adults who can handle adversity with confidence. Peterson also reflects on how competence is the key to true safety. While parents and society may focus on minimizing risks, he argues that the best way to keep children safe is to encourage them to develop skills and competence. The more skilled and confident children become in handling physical challenges, the safer they actually are. It's not the avoidance of danger that makes people safe, but their ability to navigate it skillfully. For example, a child who learns to skateboard safely through practice and persistence is far less likely to get injured than one who has never been allowed to take such risks. A practical takeaway from this chapter is the importance of balancing safety with freedom. While it's natural for parents to want to protect their children, they must also allow them the freedom to explore, take risks, and make mistakes. It's through these experiences that children learn how to manage uncertainty and build their self-reliance. Shielding them from all harm might seem caring, but it can lead to long-term harm by preventing them from growing into competent, confident adults. Peterson also touches on the psychological effects of overprotection. He explains that when children are not allowed to take risks, they often become anxious, fearful, and dependent. They fail to develop the sense of agency that comes from overcoming challenges on their own. This can lead to a fragile sense of self that crumbles in the face of real-world difficulties. In contrast, children who are allowed to test their limits become stronger and more resilient, better able to face the inevitable setbacks and challenges that life presents. In conclusion, Rule 11 teaches that allowing children to take risks is essential for their development into capable, resilient adults. Overprotection may seem like a way to keep children safe, but it ultimately prevents them from developing the competence they need to navigate the dangers of the real world. By allowing children to engage in risky activities like skateboarding, parents and society give them the opportunity to grow, learn, and build the confidence necessary for a successful life. Rule 12. Pet a cat. When you encounter one on the street. In Rule 12, Peterson reflects on how to cope with the suffering and hardships of life. He draws on personal stories and philosophical ideas to convey the message that life is inherently filled with pain and challenges. But there are moments of peace and beauty that offer respite, even if they are brief. Peterson begins by acknowledging that suffering is an unavoidable part of existence. Every major religion, he notes, has recognized the reality of human suffering. Life is full of illness, loss, and hardship, and it's natural to feel overwhelmed by these difficulties. Peterson himself recounts his own experiences with suffering, particularly the illness of his daughter, Michaela, who struggled with severe juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Watching his child endure years of pain was a heart-wrenching experience, one that tested his resilience and his ability to find meaning in life's darkest moments. However, Peterson's core lesson in this rule is that despite the inevitable suffering, there are small moments of beauty and joy that can help us endure. He uses the metaphor of petting a cat to represent these fleeting moments of peace, whether it's the sight of a cat on the street, a beautiful sunset, or a child's laughter. These small, seemingly insignificant moments can offer a brief reprieve from the weight of life's struggles. The key is to be open to these moments and to let them remind us that there is more to life than suffering. Peterson emphasizes the importance of accepting limitations. He explains that much of human suffering comes from the fact that we are vulnerable beings, prone to injury, illness, and eventual death. But these limitations are also what make life meaningful. If we were invulnerable, like a superhero with no weaknesses, our lives would lack the depth and richness that come from overcoming obstacles. Our fragility is part of what makes us human, and it's through facing and accepting this fragility that we can find meaning and purpose. A major theme of this chapter is that resilience in the face of suffering is a moral responsibility. Peterson argues that giving in to despair or bitterness in response to life's hardships only makes things worse. Instead, it is crucial to find ways to keep going, even when things seem unbearable. This doesn't mean pretending that everything is fine or ignoring the reality of pain, but rather finding small ways to make life a little more bearable. For Peterson, this can be as simple as petting a cat or noticing something beautiful in the world around you. Another practical takeaway is the importance of limiting the time you spend thinking about problems. Peterson advises setting aside specific times to address major issues, rather than letting worries consume you all day. By compartmentalizing your worries, you conserve energy and maintain your ability to function in the face of ongoing difficulties. This strategy allows you to face the crisis while also preserving your strength for the long battle ahead. The rule also touches on the idea that suffering and joy exist side by side, and it's up to us to seek out the moments of joy. Even during times of great distress, there are opportunities to experience moments of lightness or humor. Peterson uses examples like watching a child dance or enjoying a well-made cup of coffee. These moments might not solve the bigger problems in life, but they offer a reminder that there is still goodness in the world. In conclusion, Rule 12 teaches that while suffering is an inevitable part of life, it doesn't define the entirety of existence. By learning to appreciate the small moments of beauty and joy, we can find a way to keep going through life's darkest times. The simple act of petting a cat when you encounter one on the street serves as a metaphor for this idea. Even when life feels overwhelming, there are always moments of peace and beauty to be found, if you remain open to them. This brings us to the end of the summary. If you enjoyed it, please support me by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Thank you for listening, and see you soon.